So pretty amazing stuff. We went the Reliant Scimitar for one, the Bond bug, also a really cool thing, a kiddie craft marble run. Basically those things you have as a child, you just put the marbles on and goes around. You've got one of those, have you? Fantastic, well, exactly that kind of stuff. But this design's lasted like 30 years, which just doesn't happen in the toy world, which is amazing. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Tom Carron, a living, breathing genius. Fantastic to have you on the stage. Thank you very much. Have a seat here. There we go. You've got your microphone as well. Wow. Now this started quite a long time ago. I seem to remember hearing a fantastic story that your relationship with cars was you 2 years old, I think?
Not quite. Not quite. What happened is that I had a nanny who made a bet for 500 crowns, this was in Czechoslovakia,
of course,
that I could recognize 12 different makes of motor car, and she won.
Fantastic.
So I started early in my interest in motor cars.
So you weren't even 2 years old?
I wasn't quite 2 years old, that's right.
That's amazing. So there we go, so you started early. Now obviously, once you got to England, it was kind of a complicated way of getting there, but you started studying aeronautical engineering.
That's right, and I worked in the aircraft industry.
Okay.
And I did stressing, which I did very badly, but I liked going around the factory and seeing how things are made. That's always been an interest. And so I spent nearly 10 years in the aircraft type business. And then I realized I really wanted to do industrial design, what you're doing as well.
Of course.
And I went to a place called the Central School in London, and from there I got a job at Ford.
Right.
And that was a lovely experience. Ford, a great company. And
did you won a competition
while I was there? Yes, I won a national competition after my 3rd year in design. So that was nice. And so I had a fairy godmother in the design council, and she said, stay there for 4 years and get out, otherwise you get trapped in the motor industry. So I did as she suggested, and she directed me to David Ogle. David Ogle, who founded the company in '54, he had a small office in '59 when I was there, and I worked for him, and that was a great experience. He was very great designer, and he did a lovely Ogle Mini and all kind of other things. So then I left, I went worked for Hotpoint, and then I worked for Philips.
Okay.
And I'd been at Philips for a year doing white goods. That means washing machines and refrigerators. Not that they're entirely easy, but nevertheless, they're a bit dull. And I was wondering where I would go next. And then poor old David Ogle, he got killed in a car accident. And the following Monday, I had a phone call saying, would you like to come and see us? And he had sort of fellow directors in the company. And I saw them on the Saturday, and they said, here you are, BRMD and chief designer.
Amazing.
And that was, of course, irresistible. I mean, amazing to suddenly be in charge of a running office doing design, all kind of design, with a wonderful model shop and so on. So that was a change in my career, you know, on a huge scale.
And so having designed everything, or you've been working with aeroplanes, you've been working with a few bits to do with cars, and now, and also all the white goods, you've now got the chance to effectively design almost everything you wanted to.
Well, it really suited my butterfly mind, because I love so many different things, and providing the client is enthusiastic, you know, I can always be enthusiastic. I'd work for somebody doing safety pins, you know, if the client is enthusiastic. So
you've done quite an eclectic thing. I mean, what was the first project you had then once you got to Ogle Design?
Well, I had to finish a Daimler car which David Ogle had started.
Okay.
I got there in May 62, and the clay model was unfinished. This is May. And in October, we had a finished car in a motor show, you know, completely a running car. So that was the first thing. And then the biggest contract we had in our design area was for radios. And I'd never designed a radio before, of course, so they gave us 6 months notice and he could have sort of finished the whole business, but I managed to hang on and design something called a TR-130. I dare say some people had the radio. It was the best-selling radio of the 60s.
Which is amazing. So probably you might even still have one of these in your house, you know. And again, of course, it influenced, again, as always, radio design, you know, throughout the years.
Actually, they made copies of it since then, more recently, but nevertheless. So anyway, I managed to hang on, and I was at Ogle for the best part of 40 years.
Wow.
Doing every kind of product, yeah.
But you did, I mean, one of the things, I think, a classically iconic vehicle, actually there's one in the Dream Rides at the moment, which is the Bond Bug, you know, that bright orange, sort of fantastically fun vehicle.
Well, I always wanted to do a sporting three-wheeler, and I talked to Reliant about it from the moment we started working for them in '63, we made little age-scale models and talked to them, and I couldn't rouse their interest. And then they bought Bond, and they needed to put a product into Bond, and they said, okay, go ahead and do your sporting three-wheeler, your two-seat three-wheeler, and that's what we did, and it was a load of fun.
Because you actually used the technology that was going to go into the Reliant Robin before they even had a chance to use it.
Yes, it was the Robin chassis shortened.
Okay.
And the Robin came out 2 years later only. So it was that. But of course, before that came the Scimitar.
Of course, yes. Well, it's a very, very important car, because I think this is probably where your influence has had its most far-reaching. I mean, explain how you got into that. So the Reliant Scimitar was a project that they already had
the coupe.
Coupe, that's right.
Yeah. And Reliant felt that there wasn't much room in the back, which there never is in coupes, and said if we had a bit more room there, it might sell better. Yeah. And we did two versions, one of which with an extended greenhouse and a very short back, and the other one an estate type back. And the MD of Reliant came to see it and went straight for the very adventurous GTE, Gran Turismo sporting estate. And so we started out in '67, it came out in '68.
It was quite a controversial design, wasn't it? Because one of the things you did, they had the waistline on the side, which is basically sort of like the point of a car, which kind of separates the top from the bottom, essentially.
Yeah, the body from the greenhouse, as we say. Well, the line dividing it went up all the way to the back, which hadn't been done before and was very controversial. But the merit of having an estate car type of body is that we had lots of lovely room in the back.
Of course.
Aerodynamically is much better. It went faster with the same engine as the Capri. It was faster than the Capri. And it didn't have lift problems, very stable in crosswind. And then we had the back seats could fold down separately, which meant you could have a 4-seater, 3-seater, or a 2-seater with varying amounts of luggage. So that was great. And I really hope people here will go in Hall 3 and have a look at the 4 cars that are there, because they've been lovingly improved with all kind of really nice touches, and people must have spent hours and hours doing the work, and it's really worth seeing. And one of them is a special Ogle version we did for the chairman of Reliant, and it's got a glass going right back to the depots, which is more common now, but it wasn't then. Are we having competition again?
Again, I think, yes. The Dream Rides are ripping themselves up again.
Yeah.
So I mean, all these design features, so you've got the split seats, the lifted waist. I mean, you don't see a car now on the road without that kind of aggressive stance, do you? So it's sort of design. This was, what, 40 odd years ago, so it's amazing.
Exactly, for the 40th anniversary, but for a few years it didn't catch on, and in fact it was criticized. But now if you go in a car park, you have a job to find a car that hasn't got a waistline that goes up and up all the way to the back.
It's fantastic. That's a real design. It's a detail that's going to live on forever, and I think it's amazing that you were there at the beginning creating that stuff. Fantastic.
It It was great, yes.
So when you did, once you've done the Scimitar, you did some other projects with them, but you also moved on to bigger things like the Leyland truck, for example.
Yes, we did so many other things. The Leyland trucks were lovely. They came out in 1980. And above all, I don't know if anybody here drives trucks, but people driving trucks do it all day and the next day and the next day. And it's a very demanding job. Yeah. And the ergonomics have got to be really, really good. And I wanted the environment inside the truck to be like a Porsche, you know. And it really was nice what we were able to do. And to replace the sort of traditional black PVC on the seat, I went to London to Savile Row and got a really, really nice fabric for clothes. And that was translated into design for the seat. And of course we made full-size models at Ogle of what the finished model should look like, yeah. You know. And as I say, it won the design awards and sort of set new standards for truck design.
When you think that the truck drivers live, really they do live in these environments, and before your design, they were very utilitarian sort of boxes. They were very unpleasant places to be, and you just completely transform that again. So, and now you have all these big trucks that are like houses on wheels, and it all came from your designs again. So it's an amazing, yet another thread of your design, you know, brilliance kind of going through that.
Actually, another touch which was nice is that they wanted it to have a friendly look to it, you know, instead of having a great big aggressive grill and be like that, yeah. You know. And so I got the focal center of the product on the windscreen. So there was sort of television-like screen with a sort of black pouch, as we called it, below with a name on it. And it was the driver who was the sort of focal center of the truck, because it is he who animates the truck, you know. So we did all of that kind of thing.
That's right, again, because it's one of those things that you sort of don't necessarily notice as, you know, somebody who uses technology. You might not actually think about all the thought that goes in, you know, to these sort of designs. I mean, one of the things, of course, you've had a lot of work with is trying to fit, I mean, from when you were doing the white goods stuff right up to the cars, and of course newer vehicles now, trying to fit all that technology into a certain space, in a certain package, but still making it aesthetically pleasing, for one thing. You know, it's got to look nice, it's got to function perfectly, so you've had to think about all of those things as well.
Actually, there was one little touch which always amused people. I like to have a sort of theme running through a product, okay, so that it looks as if one person had conceived and had designed the whole thing. And I picked on the theme of sausages. So the front has got sausages for the air to go in, and the steps have sausages to give you a grip. And on the pedals you had sausages. There's sausages right through the Leyland trucks. And
well, it's perfect for truck drivers, of course, with their truck stops. So now, of course, you're not only doing, well, obviously now I suppose the work you're doing now, I mean, you're still the chairman of Ogle, is that right?
No, I'm out of Ogle.
Okay, you're out of Ogle.
I think I deserve to
a bit of a rest
retire after more than nearly 40 years, yes.
40 years, but you're still very much involved with design, aren't you? So you're still...
Yes, I'd love to, you know, design. There's so many products that can be improved, you know.
Yes, of course.
And I mean, for example, if that can be fitted in, I think motor cars at the moment, the waistline, you know, the line we were talking about, is terribly high. And coming here, I watched some people in four-wheel drives, and the waistline was here. They could put the elbow on the window, and they could see and be seen, yeah. And it was very flattering. But a lot of cars, the glass comes down to here, yeah. And in many cars you sit much too low, and there is maybe 8 inches of headroom, which is quite unnecessary. You should really be up there to see properly. Yeah. So there are funny things like that. I think there is some room for doing cleverer doors, but the doors that I don't care for terribly is doors that open upwards, because I turned a car over on its roof, and luckily one of the doors still opened, so I flew out of it. But if you've got a Galvin car, or you're about to buy a Lamborghini, I think again, you know.
Well, if you're going to buy one, don't crash it upside down. I think that's
that's right. Yeah. So.
But it's not just cars either, of course. The thing is, like you were talking about aeroplanes as well. I mean, obviously, like, there's a whole load of ways of improving that as well, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I felt for some time that the 737, which is what EasyJet and Ryanair and a lot of other people use, could be updated. And so I've played with that kind of thing. And what I proposed, and I've got models and proposed how the interior can be arranged, is instead of having the fuselage one big bubble for pressurization purposes, have 3 horizontal bubbles and make a really lovely wide cabin and do away with overhead bins, which I really don't
especially
like,
for me.
you know. Yes, you must know all about it. You know, and have luggage racks like you do on a train from sort of ceiling to floor. You go in and store it and you can actually reach it, you know.
Yeah, very sensible.
So, and then I think aircraft should have a wonderful sort of welcoming entrance, you know, not go through the toilet or the galley, but have an entrance that says, you know, you're welcome, and you know, maybe have a smell of coffee coming towards you and somewhere to stretch your legs and so on. So that was the concept behind the 737 of the future that I was playing with. Yes.
Well, so look out for that, guys. The next time when you're on a plane, just think about what Tom is trying to think about, trying to sort of get into the design world, and I think it will happen.
You might have to wait about 15 years, actually, so I may not see it, but I hope you will benefit from my bit of thinking on that.
Well, I think we will. But also, I mean, it's even then, so we're talking about all kinds of stuff that we get to touch and feel all day long, cars, aircraft, but also you do a lot of work with children's toys, because that's a real passion of yours, isn't it?
I made big effort to get into the toy business because small children in particular are such fun, you know, so much energy and enthusiasm and desire to learn and so on. So I love doing toys, and one toy which I think a lot of people played with was a marble run we did for Kiddicraft. And that was based on observing my own children playing with a wooden one, which was fixed. And I thought, if you could build it in different ways, you know, and then have the reward of playing with it, you know, it would be so much better. So we prototyped it and sold it, and that was more than 35 years ago, and it's still running. A very few, I think somebody nodding there who probably played with it. I meet them very often, and it's still being copied, incidentally. And I was here at the NEC a few weeks ago, and there was a hall full of toys and stuff. Yeah. And there were 2 people who had marble runs, just, you know, inspired by what I had done 35 years ago.
Because you're about to say that, obviously, most toys these days may have a shelf life or a useful life of about 2 years or so.
That's
so
right.
35 years. I mean, it's just amazing. That's incredible. Have you got any other toys you're going to be sort of playing with still?
Oh God, yes. Well, partly because of my enthusiasm for children, particularly small children who are very often terribly patronized, and they're capable of much more than they're given credit for. Yeah. So I do workshops with them, making things out of rubbish mostly, but it's a lot of fun. And I've even done that with 3-year-olds, you know, and their enthusiasm was such that the noise level in this room, there were 5 of them, you know, sort of went right up there, you know. It was fantastic. But at the same time, I now have grandchildren, and the eldest is nearly 3, so I make toys for him, the sort of toys you can't buy in a shop.
Okay.
You know? And so that keeps me creatively occupied, apart from sort of giving talks, and which I like talking about design, as you may have noticed.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a very broad subject.
And doing the workshops and making the toys, yes, I have a load of fun.
Well, something I'd find really interesting, because obviously I have a little dabble with car design myself. I mean, you guys may have seen the sofa and the bed and other weird things like that, and it's definitely playing compared to what you do, and I'm kind of getting out into using computer-aided design, computers, to actually design those things. Now, of course, in the days when you were doing the Reliant Scimitar, it was basically, you didn't really have sort of computer technology like we all on ticker tape and things. So of course everything was by hand or by drawing. And I think you probably favoured the more practical side of things rather than perhaps using drawing. So explain to me how that kind of worked.
Well, I was lucky in that I had wonderful people in our model shop, and they were creative enough to take initiatives and get things right. So you didn't have to spell everything out, dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So we worked in a very practical way. The Bond bug, we got a chassis and we sort of built a mock-up around it and around somebody sitting in it. And from there we went and made the body for the first prototype.
So you could really see exactly what you were going to get, how everything was going to go. I mean, of course, in fact, design is coming back round to that. I think Gordon Murray, he did the F1 and the XLR and all that sort of things. He's now got a design studio where, using computer technology, they can actually use like a 3D printer to print out effectively these panels like parts of your dashboards, doing exactly what you were doing again all those years ago, but actually they're now using the technology to perhaps do it a little bit quicker maybe, but I mean obviously same principles, same processes really.
I don't know if they did it quicker, we had a sort of rough model of the Scimitar GTE in October of one year. By January, we had a prototype driven out of Ogle, and
so actually that is probably...
I don't know if they would do it much quicker with computers.
Well, that's it. But again, I suppose maybe because I suppose the teams were quite a little bit smaller as well. I think now if like a BMW or something, you'd have the entire company designing a car for maybe 5 or 6 years. They're going to spend millions and millions of pounds developing it. But I guess you had a much smaller team, but it was much more hands-on. And I guess you had more control.
Oh yes. I mean, I could even get my hands dirty with clay, which was wonderful. Except it smells a bit of sulfur. But of course, at the same time, we were still doing radios and vacuum cleaners and knitting machines and all kind of other wonderful things. Yes.
That's amazing. So, because you were saying them before as well, the Scimitars, the ones that the guys have got over on Hall 3, you should go and see them because they are amazing. But you were saying that how they were enhanced. I guess those are probably features, a lot of the things they've done are things you might wanted to have done. But of course, again, probably didn't have the time or practice.
Yeah, well, you couldn't afford to buy a car like the ones that are there, and because so much sort of love and hard work has gone into them. And one of them is a competition car too, and it's wonderfully light and looks great. Yes, and apparently it works very well.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's really good. Well, I think, unless there's anybody's got any questions in the crowd, got any questions for Tom? I'll just borrow your microphone a second. I'll run over there and then run back.
What made you choose? What made you choose the Essex engine for the Scimitar?
I'll just run back over here. So, but what made you choose to use the Essex engine in the Scimitar?
I had no choice. That's what Reliant wanted to put in. We didn't deal with the mechanical side of it, so I think that's the simple answer. Sometimes I'm asked, why didn't you put 2 wheels in front on the Bond bug? I had no choice. Reliant put 2 wheels in the back, which actually had some merit because on the Bond bug you sat well back, the truck was quite wide, and so the weight was in the right sort of place, But those were given. We had no choice.
But that's actually part of the job of a designer, isn't it? You may have all kinds of ideas in your head that are sort of just waiting to come out, and you're waiting for that client to give you that opportunity, but then they will also give you a whole load of parameters and specifications you have to design within. So how do you kind of work with that process?
Well, I think that's the challenge of design. Making silk purses out of sow's ears, or near silk purses, I think, in fact, we need to get into a sort of mood of designing to get the most out for the least. Make something out of nothing. Because I don't think we can afford to use the world resources the way we do at the moment. So, apropos of which, for example, I think the small cars like the Smart is much too expensive for what it is. It could be much more simpler and more fun than what it is, and much more inexpensive to make and use less material. So as an example of what I would love to redo.
Maybe somebody will give you the opportunity sometime soon.
Well, I don't know. I think a big problem is that a lot of people talk about innovation. You may have experienced that. And when you knock on the door and say, I've got some new ideas for you, they sort of back away.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, actually, one thing is interesting because one of the things that we've talked about before is also the way people perceive car designers. You think about, somebody makes a sculpture, for art. Everybody says, oh yes, that's definitely art. But you ask a sculptor about car design, they never really consider that to be, but actually you are a sculptor as well. You are an artist.
Well, the skill that goes into doing a motor car body is huge. And the people doing it nowadays are very, very skilled people. And if you think of it, Henry Moore didn't have to worry about legislation, aerodynamics, weight, crushworthiness, access, shut lines, He just made a lovely sculpture that was going to be made in bronze, not in steel and glass and rubber and plastic, So, and bodies that can be made for 75 quid, He didn't have such a problem. And made in volumes of 100,000 a year or more, So it is, in fact, I wish Tate Modern or some big exhibition, gallery would sometimes have motor cars on show there, really nice motor cars.
I think we should work on that. I think we'll have to start a campaign about that because I think we need to be more appreciated.
I think it's an art form, yes, and on television they discuss art, of course, and so they should, and sculpture and architecture, but they don't discuss motor cars as a piece of art. Right. And yet I think, as we agree, I think
they should do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the stage. Thank you, Tom. It's been amazing. Now, Tom is going to have a presentation for him over on the Scimitar stand in Hall 3. That's going to happen just about now, isn't it? I think just after this. So if you want to go and have a chat perhaps with Tom and see him be presented, go over there and have a look. But thank you very much. It's an amazing pleasure. You're an absolute genius. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
Tom Karen. Thank you.